And tonight we are met to recall that agonizing moment 100 years ago, when the earthly life of Baha'u'llah came to an end, and the King of Kings was no longer with us on this earth. We recall his sufferings and his triumphs. We register our awareness of the task to which he has called us. And we pay tribute both to the memory of his life and the power of his spirit which continues to sustain us.
People everywhere commemorate anniversaries of important events. Most are associated with the great transitions of life, especially birth and death. In some mysterious way, we are moved to recollection and reflection in rhythm with the earth as it revolves around the sun, reinforcing the spiritual connections between those souls presently dwelling in this physical plane and those who have passed beyond. It is a measure of the profound effect of the great spiritual teachers of mankind, those manifestations of divine perfections that throughout all the ages and centuries of recorded history, the anniversaries associated with them have attained a singular penetrating influence. For reasons which are even more difficult to adequately comprehend, certain anniversaries occurring at longer intervals, such as the passage of a generation or the end of a century, have very strong observable effects. One of the most dramatic examples in modern times is the effect on a small Baha'i community of their remembrance and reflection upon the centenary of Baha'u'llah's imprisonment in the Siachol, the infamous Black Pit of Tehran, where in a dream he received the first intimations of his mission and station. The guardian of the faith, Shoghi Effendi, called for the observance of a holy year and the initiation of a 10-year global crusade to befittingly mark the occasion. Thus inspired, the believers left their homes and established the Baha'i faith in 100 new countries in just 11 months, initiating the 40-year metamorphosis of this young movement into a recognized world religion. Upon the first of these Baha'i pioneers to settle in each of the Virgin Territories, Shoghi Effendi bestowed the honorific title of Knight of Baha'u'llah and recorded their names on a majestic scroll of honor. On May 27, 1992, more than 100 of those Baha'i teachers so honored gathered in the grand concourse of the seat of the Universal House of Justice in the presence of the Hands of the Cause of God, the members of the Universal House of Justice, and counselors from around the world.
But I mean, when you think of the beginnings, and then you think of what we're celebrating here today, the Knights of Baha'u'llah who conquered the whole planet, the Knights of Baha'u'llah who went and did what the Baha'u'llah had planned, obviously, what Abdu'l-Baha would have loved to have lived to see, and what Shoghi Effendi put in motion, and which the House of Justice has carried to a glorious conclusion.
Following the reception, the scroll was placed in a special cylinder in preparation for its final interment the following day beneath the threshold of the entrance to the shrine of Baha'u'llah at Bahji.
This is both a symbol and a promise. A symbol registering the reality of a clear response at a critical time to the duty laid upon us by the Lord of Hosts to diffuse his teachings among all peoples. A promise that the commitment so dazzlingly displayed by these intrepid pioneers will be reaffirmed by generations of their successors, ensuring that the light of Baha'u'llah's revelation, shining in all its power and glory, will have suffused and enveloped the entire planet.
It was the great opening event of the commemorations marking the centenary of the ascension of Baha'u'llah and the inauguration of his covenant. Each country was invited to send a delegation of 19 to the gathering. The resulting assemblage of nearly 3,000 people from all races, nations, and cultures was in itself a compelling testament to the global character of the Baha'i faith and clear evidence that the seed sown by the Knights of Baha'u'llah 40 years earlier and nurtured by thousands of pioneers and traveling Baha'i teachers had indeed found fertile soil. For 2 days, the group paid homage to the Lord of the Age, gathering again at Bachi on the evening of the centenary of his ascension, wrapped in prayer and meditation until dawn. Concurrent with these events, every community in the Baha'i world gathered in the pre-dawn hours, sharing the same devotional program in a 24-hour outpouring of love and respect that encircled the earth. In each land, the commemorations took on their own textures as the Baha'is found the most culturally meaningful ways to express their devotion and respect. As this process continued across the time zones, the believers gathered in the Holy Land were taken to the foot of Mount Carmel. First, they climbed the 9 lower terraces to the shrine of the Bab, paying their respects to the martyred herald of the new revelation. Continuing on up the path of the Ark, past the International Archives, the pilgrims approached the seat of the Universal House of Justice, where, as a final gesture of reverence and respect, they were admitted in small groups to view the portrait of Baha'u'llah. The passing of Baha'u'llah in this room on May 29, 1892, was an event of indescribable sadness to his loved ones. The historian Nabil was so disconsolate, he drowned himself in the sea. Yet through the provisions of the covenant of Baha'u'llah, the unity and leadership of the Baha'i cause remained intact, giving rise over the next 100 years to its unique, world-embracing administrative order. The inauguration of that covenant 100 years ago was the central focus of the second great centenary event of the year, the Second Baha'i World Congress, culminating on the Day of the Covenant, November 26th, in New York City. 27,000 people from 180 countries attended the 4-day Congress, the largest gathering of Baha'is ever convened.
As Baha'i World Congress Day.
A sizable part of the Congress program revolved around the majestic figure of Abdu'l-Baha, the appointed center of Baha'u'llah's covenant. The unique ministry of Abdu'l-Baha was commemorated in art, music, speeches, and a grand pavilion recalling his historic journey to America in 1912. Baha'i communities from around the world sent handmade quilts which adorned the foyer outside the main hall of the Jacob Javits Convention Center. The World Congress Choir and Orchestra was composed of nearly 500 musicians assembled on the spot from a number of countries. The ensemble performed several newly composed works, including an oratorio in honor of Baha'u'llah, contributing greatly to the spirit of reverent joy that characterized the gathering. Journalists from several countries showed great interest in the proceedings. Outside the daily plenary sessions, more than 100 additional events were scheduled in 8 locations, including 2 concerts in New York City's Carnegie Hall. On the 4th day, the Congress was open to the world by means of a satellite broadcast, which was received in more than 50 countries. The first half of the 4-hour broadcast presented highlights of the Congress. Then the broadcast went live to the main hall for coverage of the closing session of the Congress.
Moscow, Russia, are you with us?
The satellite broadcast established live linkages between the Baha'is gathered in New York with 9 additional sites around the world. The transmission was broadcast on national television in several countries, reaching millions of viewers. The culminating event of the Congress was the first ever live transmission to a worldwide audience of a message from the Universal House of Justice, which addressed the world directly from its seat on Mount Carmel.
Sublime emotions surge in our hearts as we survey the dramatic history and amazing progress of these 100 years. At the time of the passing of Baha'u'llah, the Baha'i community was contained within the borders of no more than 15 countries, the vast majority of its members living in his native Iran. The community now embraces the entire planet. We rejoice at the spirit of unity, which is evident in its steady consolidation through the workings of the administrative order to which the covenant has given birth. Our accumulated experience has clearly demonstrated the efficacy of the covenant. The genuine unity it induces greatly encourages our expectation that all of humanity can and will be united.
These centenary commemorations serve the central purposes of the Holy Year, providing times for remembrance, for meditation, and solemn reflection. Out of this inner encounter of a fundamentally spiritual nature emerge new levels of dedication and action. The Holy Year was launched at Rizwan with the formation of 12 new national and regional spiritual assemblies, most in countries long closed to the faith, bringing the total number to 165. Brazil was host to two highly significant activities early in the year. On May 29th, the Federal Chamber of Deputies convened a 2-hour-long solemn plenary session to pay formal homage to Baha'u'llah on the 100th anniversary of his passing. A few days later, the attention of the world focused on Rio de Janeiro, as the world's leaders gathered there for the United Nations Conference on the Environment and Development. The Baha'i international community was one of very few non-governmental organizations invited to address the plenary sessions of the Earth Summit. Baha'is were also involved in many highly visible ways in the associated activities of the Global Forum. The Brazilian Baha'is made a unique contribution by constructing an impressive monument bearing quotations from the writings of Baha'u'llah. The hourglass-shaped structure was dedicated at the close of the conference in a special ceremony in which vials of earth from the participating countries were poured into the hourglass and sealed beneath the greatest name. In Dublin, Ireland, Baha'is sponsored a well-planned conference on a new world order, the environment and development. In the Gambia, some 1,000 inhabitants of 9 Muslim villages became Baha'is, including the village chiefs and elders. Baha'is of Germany worked for a year to create a traveling exhibition dedicated to Baha'u'llah and his writings. The exhibit juxtaposed excerpts from the writings of Baha'u'llah with original paintings reflecting the chosen themes. Prince Alfred of Liechtenstein visited Japan at the behest of that country's National Spiritual Assembly. His 15 lectures in 10 cities were attended by several thousand people. Audacious Bulgarian Baha'is organized a day-long orientation to the faith for the press, which was attended by 12 journalists and subsequently covered in print and on both national television channels. Off the Atlantic coast of Africa, Knight of Baha'u'llah, Elise Linnell, began the Holy Year by returning to visit the island of Sao Tome, where as a young woman, she traveled and courageously taught the faith, earning a place on the Guardian's Roll of Honor. Baha'i youth were especially active during the Holy Year. The European Baha'i Youth Council used a week-long conference in Czechoslovakia to organize 14 teams of youth who devoted the entire year to travel teaching throughout the continent. Italian Baha'is rode 500 kilometers by bicycle to present information on the faith to officials in 31 cities in the southern region of Puglia. The youthful participants of the Mary and Jack Project traveled by every means available and helped strengthen new communities and spiritual assemblies from St. Petersburg to Vladivostok. In Siberia, the summer school at Lake Baikal was crowded with more than 250 participants. Increasing numbers of youth engaged in a year of service as seen in this documentary produced by 2 American Baha'i youth as their own Year of Service project. Health for Humanity, an organization of Baha'i health professionals, was formally chartered to engage in service across national borders. Its project in Guyana won the public praise of that country's prime minister.
They've had doctors come to go to remote areas. As I said, they sent sports equipment. We got help for the hospitals out in rural communities, all without fuss, all without the need for newspaper articles and that kind of thing. When you mention that they only represent a small portion of our population, that is true, but sometimes it's not quantum, it's quality. And certainly in those terms, they qualify very highly and rated very highly by us.
A second project has been launched in Albania, where together with other professional assistants in education and other areas, the services and character of the Baha'is have helped create a very positive feeling for the faith among the highest officials of the country.
Well, me personally, I belong to the Catholic religion, but I have a special respect for Baha'i faith and for the Baha'i people who try to spread it. I have met with them. They are very humane, very nice people. There is something very nice about them. By spreading their religion, they don't fight against other beliefs. This is really something good, because it's a tolerance, and the person who is tolerant has also other qualities.
In Albania, as in countries all over the world, children received special attention during the Holy Year. The village of Preza sits high atop a mountain outside Tirana. Some 400 of its 2,000 inhabitants have become Baha'is. One of the Baha'is donated a building for the education of the Baha'i children who gather several times a week for classes. Nur University in Santa Cruz, Bolivia, was the site of the first Latin American seminar on social and economic development. Some 100 people representing 15 countries and 50 different projects participated. The Maxwell School on Vancouver Island, Canada, was host to an international conference on Baha'i schools. The gathering, which immediately followed the World Congress, was attended by Baha'i educators from all over the world. A most unusual tribute to Baha'u'llah was paid in Medina village in the highlands of Papua New Guinea. The traditional leaders, the Nalek elders, who have been Baha'is for over 35 years, convened a Malangan, a special traditional feast normally held only once in a decade. This special Holy Year feast was moved to the grounds of the Baha'i Center and was meant to strengthen the spiritual link to Baha'u'llah in commemoration of the Holy Year. The feast was attended by hundreds of people throughout the region. Much attention was paid to the 9 magnificently carved masks that were presented for the occasion. This rare ceremony served to identify the Baha'i Center henceforth as a sacred place and created a strong sense of a spiritual tie of kinship to Baha'u'llah for the entire population of the area. At the British Museum, perhaps the world's foremost repository of the artifacts of human civilization, the Hand of the Cause of God, Abdu'l-Baha Ruhiya Khanum, was invited to the opening of an exhibit of Baha'i manuscripts, including a number of the original tablets of Baha'u'llah. The islands of Trinidad and Tobago recognized the faith with a postage stamp at the outset of the year. The government of Israel issued a commemorative stamp with the seat of the Universal House of Justice, accompanied by an opening day cancellation featuring the logo of the Second Baha'i World Congress. At the University of Maryland in the United States, the position of Baha'i Chair for World Peace was endowed and formally inaugurated. An office for the advancement of women was established within the Baha'i international community at the behest of the Universal House of Justice. In Iran, the Baha'i community continued to answer the call to sacrifice. In Geneva, the United Nations Commission on Human Rights made public a secret memorandum from Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Cultural Council, which detailed a specific plan for the destruction of the Baha'i community in Iran. The United Nations Office of the Baha'i International Community in New York spearheaded a campaign of public information to inform the world of this document, which received the written endorsement of both the President and Supreme Ayatollah of Iran. Public reaction was swift and strong.
The Iranian policy is reprehensible and chilling. It's another reminder that the forces of intolerance and bigotry remain strong in the world and seek to grow even stronger with this kind of evidence that's before us.
To me, it is a document that confirms an Iranian blueprint to destroy the cultural roots of Baha'is both inside and outside Iran, and is tantamount to a program of cultural genocide.
If Iran is ever to enjoy normal relations with the free world, it will have to exhibit a far greater acceptance of freedom of religion than has ever been the case in revolutionary Iran. A Baha'i, no less than any other human being, is entitled to the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Meanwhile, work on the Ark and Terraces projects on the side of Mount Carmel continues apace, despite increasing tensions in the country. The lower terraces and excavations for the Center for the Study of the Texts moved toward completion. On December 9th, work was initiated on Phase 3 of the project, which includes excavation of the site for the International Teaching Center and the upper terraces to the Shrine of the Bab. In Turkey, Baha'i travelers were again able to visit the house occupied by Baha'u'llah during his stay in Istanbul, as restoration and preservation work was completed. At year's end, the Russian government recognized the Regional Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is of Russia, Georgia, and Armenia as the legal head of the faith. Formerly, all legal matters had to be submitted to a commission of the Supreme Soviet. Now, many issues like registration of local spiritual assemblies will be referred to the Regional Spiritual Assembly for approval. While visiting London in 1912, Abdu'l-Baha pointed out that contemplation and meditation enable the human intellect to discern the reality of things and to bring forth the sciences and arts. Thus, it is not surprising that the intensified level of reflection occasioned by the twin centenaries of the Holy Year should be associated with a profusion of artistic and literary output in the Baha'i world. New films aim to introduce Baha'u'llah to new audiences.
That he was exiled on foot and dispossessed of all across the mountains from Tehran to Baghdad.
In Zaire, the Philippines, and Canada, major concerts and music festivals drew large audiences. Danny Seals, a popular American country music artist, drew media attention with the strong message of his new music video, We Are One. The song and video are an important contribution to the ongoing struggle to establish race unity in America. Baha'i choral singing developed significantly, as did the use of the dramatic arts, both of which were prominently showcased at the World Congress in New York. Numerous distinguished publications appeared on the themes of the Holy Year. In Japan, the Vision of Baha'u'llah was published and distributed by a commercial publishing house, giving it a wider audience than any previous Baha'i publication in that country. The unique power of the Baha'i Covenant is clearly revealed in the Ministry of the Custodians, an account of the stewardship of the hands of the cause of God, with an introduction by the hand of the cause of God, Abdu'l-Baha Ruhiyya Khanum. The volume thoroughly documents the period between the passing of Shoghi Effendi in 1957 and the election of the Universal House of Justice in 1963, when the affairs of the faith were entrusted to the hands of the cause of God.
Never in human history has a world religion been put in the position that we were in 1957, and not that much schism, which is extraordinary. It shows how tightly woven the fabric of the Baha'i religion was, and its administrative order and its institutions by Shoghi Effendi, that nobody could make a tear in it.
The quality of humility and detachment demonstrated by the hands of the cause during this difficult period is without parallel in religious history. This volume sheds clear light on their work and is an invaluable addition to the primary literature of the faith. For years to come, it is certain that those who engaged in the centenary commemorations of the Holy Year will look back and count these as important milestones in the worldwide development of the Baha'i faith. However, even at the distance of 100 years, we stand too close to these momentous events to fully comprehend their import. This is especially true of the last great event of the Holy Year, the release on March 21st of a copiously annotated English-language translation of the Kitab-i-Aqdas, the most holy book of Baha'u'llah's revelation. Revealed in this simple upper room in the house of Udi Kamar, it was described by the Guardian as that priceless treasury enshrining for all time the brightest emanations of the mind of Baha'u'llah, the charter of his world order, the chief repository of his laws, the harbinger of his covenant. It is destined to have a greater effect upon mankind than any book ever written. In one sense, its publication provides the most fitting conclusion to the great activities of the Holy Year. In another, it seems likely that all the transformations and changes wrought by the centenary activities are but a prologue to the transforming energies it will release into the world.